40, 50, 65,000 miles as the official periodic table car.
Wow. And how much did you pay for it, and where did you get it?
$75 in Tam Valley in southern Marin County. All I wanted was a power steering pump for another car I had, and this ran so good, I thought I'll just let the Mustang sit and drive this, and here it is.
Here it is. Now, when you, you basically call up schools ahead of time and let them know, or kind of arrange it, or, how do you contact the people you want to bring the car to?
What I found is it's easier if I have a sentimental tie. So if I go back to places like Cincinnati, Ohio, where I was born, I grew up in New Jersey. So like I sell these through college bookstores. So to be able to go on to Princeton's campus and go right into the department chair's office and start showing them how it folds, I wasn't reluctant at all. And they greeted it with open arms, Notre Dame, things, Cal Berkeley, things of that nature. So when I go to a town like Cincinnati, I can call up and say, hey, I grew up here and I'd love to come do some lectures, and I have a car and I have, so much that I can do. And then the Bay Area also, being a College of Marin graduate and Sonoma State University. So I've done most of my lectures around Bay Area, Cincinnati, and even in South Carolina I did a couple over the summer.
And you told me you just got back from going into where, Watts? How was that?
Glenn Seaborg went to high school. He said his story was he was so poor he was bused into Watts. Southgate is a bordering town. So I went to Jordan High School last week in Watts, and I was kind of upset about the supervision because they let me pull the car up in the middle of the campus. But I came out from talking with some teachers and nobody was watching the car. And some of the kids, they went, because I let kids put their initials on the trim. There's probably been about, well, up to last week, 3,500 kids, but now probably 4,000 kids have gotten to sign their initials on the trim. So when I came out, these kids were tagging all over the car. I have pictures of the windshield was completely covered. The body, a lot of this I rubbed a lot of it off. So they had totally, they weren't doing much maliciously, but there were a couple kids that were scraping their initials in the glass with sandpaper, and a couple of them with, I guess, their switchblades and that. So, but yeah, it was rewarding. The kids were really nice, surprisingly, for Watts, and interested. Glenn Seaborg went here 70 years ago, and they're like, who's he? And I go, look, he's got an element named after him. He was sitting here, knew nothing about science till 11th grade. And these kids were just eating it up. They loved it.
And the tie to Sebastopol now, right over here, is a roadway that's named after someone who has developed or who discovered an element.
Well, I became a kind of a local historian on the periodic table when I found out there were elements named berkelium and californium. So I thought, oh, that must be for California and Berkeley. Well, I found that Glenn Seaborg, who now has an element 106 Seaborgium, he discovered the plutonium bomb at Cal Berkeley, pretty much plutonium and that, using the cyclotron that Lawrence had done, and started naming the elements for Cal Berkeley. So when I was doing the history of it, I noticed Highway 116 was known as the Willard F. Libby Highway. So through my education, I noticed that the 1960 Nobel Prize for Chemistry was awarded to Willard F. Libby. And I'd always driven down the highway seeing the Willard F. Libby Highway, and I never knew who he was. And I go, oh, that's Nobel Prize. It was in radiocarbon dating, which came about from the Manhattan Project. When they were doing nuclear testing in the ground, they started doing it in the atmosphere. So he was one of the first proponents of no nuclear testing in the atmosphere. It's not good for humans in that, but the radiocarbon dating was a result of that. And he knew Seaborg, so I decided to take the periodic table car on a drive down the Willard F. Libby Highway. I know that's a lot. Right.
Okay, and now tell me about, is it the mole? The mole and the how did that come about, and what's the reference there?
Well, the Mickey mole, it turns out, water kind of resembles Mickey Mouse, and I noticed college professors would draw it like Mickey Mouse, but it was missing the electrons. So I came up with a way of drawing. We have a thing in chemistry called a mole, which is Avogadro's number, and so instead of Mickey Mouse, Mickey mole just seemed to fit. So there's Mickey and Mimi, they're twins, because two waters are created from this reaction. And Mickey mole, what he does is, since he's got his electron pair hands, Seventh graders can learn how water sticks together by Mickey Mole with his electron pair hands, negatives, grabbing onto Mimi's positive proton ear. And this is really, to a chemist, how water sticks together. It's called a hydrogen bond. I'd prefer to call it a proton bond. So when Mickey grabs her ear, that makes water stick together. Well, pH, I took it a step further, is based when water will actually pull a proton off a neighboring water. So you get a water with a proton as an acid, water without a proton is a base. These seventh graders in Vallejo, one summer school, they flunked science, they were in summer school, came up with it, they were so into it. They do Mikey Mole Tyson bites off of Vander Molefield's proton ear, which is a great way for them to remember it, and I notice even high school kids like that little story too.
Yeah. How much longer do you think you can keep this up, Randy? Traveling around with this car, trying to get people interested in the periodic table and chemistry?
For about a year and a half now, it's been month to month, and Glenn Seaborg took ill the summer before last, so I thought I would keep going. Then he died in February. Then they discovered 3 more elements. Now my mom is kind of terminally sick, so it's just kind of riding the momentum wave out, because dealing with kids is like the most rewarding thing I can think of to do right now. I'm actually on a research track to be studying brain cells and curing diseases such as Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis. But lecturing with school kids seems like it's going to be planting seeds, and maybe the next generation would be a better army of cancer fighters and disease by teaching them now at a young age. So it's a double-edged sword. You know, I want to quit any day and go back to research, but every day something else comes up that keeps me going. All right. Run it even bad, just leave it alone. You know, one of the things with the car, like, when I kind of get depressed or shut off by a bookstore or something, I'll be driving. So good for you last time. I'm noticing it.